Welcome to SAMM's first podcast series of 2021. To start off the year, we are bringing you a series dedicated to all the management and marketing related subjects on offer at the University of Melbourne. Choosing what subjects to do can be a stressful and time-consuming experience, so we endeavour to make that process easier. We'll hear from professors, tutors and students and get the inside scoop and details on each subject. In this episode, we'll explore the electives within the marketing major, including consumer behaviour, market business research, strategic marketing, and advertising and promotions.
Next, we'll be getting into our most highly rated marketing level 2 elective, consumer behaviour. Here to take us through the subject is past consumer behaviour student Crystal. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Would you like to quickly introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about consumer behaviour?
Sure. I am an HR officer at SAMM and I'm a Bachelor of Commerce student at the university, and I'm just about to start my third year. So I'm majoring in marketing and management and I absolutely loved consumer behaviour. So we learnt a range of interesting things from understanding consumer insights, buyer behaviours, psychological variables, external factors influencing behaviour, and consumer-related market research techniques.
Sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I loved it so much. It was really great.
What would you say were maybe like the more enjoyable parts of the subject, and why did you like it so much?
Well, we had one really exciting group assignment that we did, and it started around week 4 up until week 11 when we submitted it. And that was really great. We were in a group of 4 to 5 students throughout the whole semester. We were working on it, building on it. It was really long. I've never done an assignment that long. But just having a group of people, it wasn't just for the assignment, but just in general, being able to revise content together every week, having that support network as well. And it was such an exciting assignment. So that was something going along in the background while we were doing the subject. So that was a real big perk.
Yeah, it's cool to hear. I feel like a lot of people hate group assignments, but it's good to know that like consumer behavior offers a kind of a positive experience with that. Do you have any other things that students can sort of expect from the subject? So maybe like workload and that sort of thing?
I found the workload was really manageable. Other than the group assignment, we only had 2 other assignments, which were worth 5% each. So every week we would have readings or case studies to do, but students would be assigned a week. One week, say week 6, for example, you'd have to answer some questions to a case study. And another week, week 10, you'd have to do a summary on the reading. So you'd only have to do 2, actually submit them. That makes the study workload really manageable, which I found was really great. Of course, you would still do the readings and the case studies, but you don't necessarily have to do the extra work. And instead, if you did it that week, you would be the person who would lead discussions in breakout rooms, for example, with your team. So that made it really manageable. The staff as well were fantastic. The lecturer, Pao Franco, his lectures were so engaging, really interesting. And the lecture PowerPoint slides as well were very detailed. So I found that to be a really big perk. And the tutors as well, my tutor, Rohan, he was brilliant. One of my favourite tutors I've ever had. He goes above and beyond just in terms of, for example, organising Zoom meetings outside of tutorials to help with our group assignment and assist us, for example, or, giving really useful feedback. So yeah, the staff, the assignments, it was really good.
That's really great to hear, Crystal. And I guess why would you recommend students take this subject, and maybe how could you see the content and skills that you learned helping you down the track with either future studies or maybe looking at marketing jobs?
First of all, the content itself is really exciting. I'd say it's probably my favourite subject I've done at the university. So if you're looking for something really engaging that gives you a realistic idea of what the marketing world is like, I would highly recommend that. Also, general skills in terms of teamwork, something like that group assignment took it to a next level. I mean, being that long, the assignment, and going through different stages as the lectures got further into the content. Teamwork was a really big thing in terms of working on your own for some bits, collaborating with others for other bits. And yeah, just general organisation. I've never done a subject with this particular layout in terms of assignments and teaching. So it was a bit challenging, but so rewarding.
That's really great, Crystal. I'm glad you've had such a positive experience with it. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast, Crystal. We really appreciated your insight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now we've got Lorena on the podcast to talk us through her experience with market business research, a quantitative marketing subject. Hi, Lorena. Could you quickly introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, everyone. So my name's Lorena and I just finished my second year of commerce and I'm hoping to major in management and marketing. And I recently took market and business research to complete the quantitative requirement of my course. So yeah.
Fabulous. Did you want to maybe briefly introduce the subject and maybe talk about like the content and what you can expect to learn?
Definitely. So market and business research is a level 2 commerce elective. It's only available in semester 2. And in terms of prerequisites, you have to complete either one of principles of marketing or organizational behavior, which is also a level 2 subject. In terms of what you can expect, so the content, I would say, is relatively easy to understand, and if you keep up to date with it, it's not too much of a difficult workload. They're sort of broken up into different topics relating to the marketing research process. So that's sort of the core part of the subject, and you sort of learn about the preparation and collection of data and then how to analyze it and report on it to assist in, I guess, strategic decision making.
You do a lot of interviews and surveys. I took this subject as well. So,
oh, did you? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, a lot of data analysis and then using SPSS, like analyzing software. So you get to learn a lot in that sense.
That was very interesting, yeah.
I guess for you, could you maybe talk a bit about like why you think the skills from this subject are important for students to learn and maybe why it's a good quantitative subject to consider?
Yeah, well, I found in terms of the quantitative aspect, I actually didn't think it was very heavy in terms of quantitative content. There was a few sort of formulas and things that you do, but it's more qualitative in terms of you're learning like the procedures and methods of data analysis. When it comes to using the SPSS software, that's sort of when you need to sort of sort data and use tables and things, and I think that bit's probably a bit more quantitative. And then like interpreting the results, and there's all different sort of statistics that you learn. And in terms of skills, I think it's good for definitely your written communication, because the two main assignments are reports. And so you sort of are given a format or a structure and you just follow along with that. But it's also up to you to sort of use your skills in terms of writing up results and sort of interpreting the data. So it really tests that sort of analytical skills and I guess critical thinking.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have a favorite like topic? I know you do all sorts of surveys and interviews and like data analysis, but did you have like a favorite thing to work on?
There's a topic that you do and it's causal research, and that's sort of where you learn different experiments that are conducted either in a lab or sort of in a field environment, and sort of learning the different structures of how they sort of test different, I guess, variables. So where, you'd have like a group of individuals who would sit sort of a test or something, and then you have to like distract them to then see whether something's changed. And then, market segmentation was another topic that I found quite interesting, just learning how sort of marketers go from obviously a wide audience to then having to like really target a specific group of people with their products is also quite fascinating as well.
I was going to say for me, I think I liked doing the interviews the most. Just like coming up with the interview guides and asking questions, and just annoying people, trying to get them to do interviews with me. That was kind of fun for that first assignment. So it's definitely a good subject. You get to learn a lot, and I feel like the skills are super transferable to the real world. I was going to ask Lorena, do you feel like market business research is a subject that beginners could take, or do you kind of need like that mathematical edge or anything?
No, definitely not. I would actually recommend it to people who don't really enjoy sort of the maths side of commerce.
You can take this subject instead of like quantitative methods 2 or econometrics.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't really focus too much on the quantitative aspect, but you're still kind of learning that through other like methods to do with data analysis. But I would definitely recommend it, if someone struggles with maths, or if they're not taking finance or economics and still need to fulfill that quantitative requirement, I would say it's definitely worth doing. So not too difficult to keep up with. So you can do relatively well in it if you sort of keep up to date, and it's actually a pretty good subject, I would say.
How are like assessments and that sort of thing structured in market business research?
Yeah, so the main forms of assessment are, there's 2 written reports that you do in a group, and they're both around the same topic. So they focus on the same topic, and they sort of one aspect of it is sort of collecting data and doing interviews and focus groups, which you learn how to do during the lectures. The second assignment is focused more on sort of the data analysis, and you use SPSS, which is a statistical analysis software. And so that's testing your ability to interpret results. And then in terms of other assessments, there's also 5 tutorial exercises that you do throughout the semester, and they're all worth 2%, so they're not too difficult. They sort of just focus on 1 or 2 topics that you've covered in lectures and just testing your knowledge. And you only need 60% to get actual full marks, so that's pretty good. And then
Sounds fabulous. How did you find lectures and tutorials overall? Were they kind of interesting, or?
yeah, some of them might be sort of a bit dry for people, but on like the whole, they were quite interesting. Like they were broken up into 2 to 3 parts, and they generally go for around 2 hours. Yeah, you cover different topics from market segmentation, statistical analysis, and different sort of learning research methods and sampling methods as well. And in terms of tutorials, so you're sort of just covering basically the content that you've done in the lecture, but sort of putting that into practice with actual questions. And I would actually recommend sort of taking notes during those tutorials, because they don't publish any of the answers. So if you want to be able to sort of refer back to it in your revision, it's handy if you've sort of made
That's a
notes
good tip,
or
actually.
take screenshots. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Thank you so much to Lorena for giving us this great insight into market business research. This subject is a great opportunity to satisfy the quantitative requirements of your commerce degree if you're looking for a more qualitative route.
So next we're joined by Sophie, who's here to chat with us about strategic marketing. I think when you did it, was it a level 2 and now it's a level 3?
Yeah, so I did it back in the day when we had in-class uni, and it was, level 2 strategic marketing.
So yeah, there might be a few differences, but we're excited to hear about your experience with it. Could you quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Sophie and I'm now a 3rd year commerce student.
Yeah, great. And could you maybe talk about, I guess, what strategic marketing entailed and just introduce it maybe?
Of course. So strategic marketing was a very sort of broad overview of marketing and looking more at the strategic side. So doing lots of analysis into competitors, the external environment, and then sort of using that analysis and applying it to come up with a strategy in order to beat your competitors and do well in the sort of market you were competing in. So it was much more theoretical, I think, than some of the other marketing subjects, but very interesting. And the theories are also quite commonly used in organizations, so it's very good.
Yeah, in terms of subject content, would you say it was a bit more numbery than other marketing subjects, or did it still have that sort of essay-based focus?
Yeah, it was still essay-based. There wasn't numbers that I can remember, maybe some pricing numbers, but I think, it was more like some of the theory that I remember learning when it was a level 2 was pestle analysis, which is looking at the political, environmental impact on the industry you're working on, and then going deeper down into how that might apply to the product you were marketing. So it definitely went from sort of the macro environment more to the micro, is how the subject was laid out.
What were some of the more enjoyable parts of the subject for you? Is that something you're quite into, the strategic mindset and that?
Yeah, I quite liked it because there wasn't as much a focus on the creative side of marketing, which was different. So thinking more strategy, how do you actually make a profit? How do you budget? Or how do you do pricing strategies? Thinking more so about how the whole organization, how the whole product works in a marketing context was very fascinating, because I think a lot of the time you get bogged down in the advertising side of marketing. So it was very different in that respect.
Yeah, a lot of the other marketing subjects we're talking about in this podcast definitely have that creative focus. So it's exciting to hear about the other side of things. Did you have any highlights of the subject, maybe assignment wise, or just anything that stood out to you?
I think, yeah, it was more so the content was really well taught. Each week you had to like learn the content from the previous week because you got tested on it. The tests were in your group assignment. So you really had to have a good group assignment because you were working with them week in, week out on your assignments, but also in your tutorials. So I think because it made sure that you were continuously learning throughout the semester rather than cramming just prior to the exam, it made it a bit more manageable and easier at the end.
That makes sense. And I guess why would you recommend this subject to students? Like, do you see the skills being super transferable or?
Yeah, I think like a lot of the topics and things we did were very practical because we were always applying them to examples, like real world companies. And from memory, I know the exam will probably be different, but we had a case study that was, I think it was BWS when I did it, and like, you know, all the alcohol chains here in Australia. So very, very relevant and interesting because it is the real world and that's where we're going to end up all working, hopefully. So
very good point.
Yes, very transferable, the skills.
Yeah, and I guess finally, like, what kind of student would you recommend this subject to? Do you have to be like a strategic thinker, or do you think like beginners could sort of pick this up?
Oh, for sure. I think anyone could do this subject, keeping in mind that it was a level 2 when I did it, so it might have been potentially easier then. But I still think it's a very manageable subject as long as you just keep on top of content and you're just diligent and learning and applying your knowledge, then you should be fine.
Great. Thank you so much, Sophie.
No worries.
Advertising and Promotions is a Level 3 elective which takes a deeper look at the marketing mix and applies it to real-world cases and briefs. With this subject, you can round out your marketing knowledge from previous years and use it in a practical setting with a live brief from a major marketing firm based in Melbourne.
So Helen and I have both actually done advertising and promotions, so we'd really love to share our experience with it because we loved it. I thought it was a really positive marketing Level 3 elective. So pretty much it is like a Level 3 subject that you can choose from that focuses mostly on the promotion element of the marketing mix and how to sort of create integrated marketing campaigns. So I guess, Helen, did you want to maybe talk about like what students can expect from the subject, like in terms of maybe the group assignment and like workload and that kind of thing?
So I found this subject quite practical, probably one of the most practical I've done in my marketing degree. So for the group assignment, it is a bit like the usual marketing group assignments that you've done probably in the past, but we did get a live brief for this one from Saatchi & Saatchi, which is a real media and marketing company. So we got to experience firsthand what the type of work they do and like how to make real life suggestions for, I think, Toyota GR, the brand it was. Yeah. So we got to work in a group to come up with suggestions on how to launch a new subset of the Toyota brand into Australia, which was pretty enjoyable, I would say.
Yeah, I thought it was great too for kind of preparing you for the real world of like marketing consulting or working for like a big agency and that kind of thing. I guess on the other side of things, you definitely learn a lot about marketing theories, which you can then apply like obviously in the more practical components. You also get to watch like 5 to 10 ads a lecture. So there was a lot of emphasis on analyzing real life situations and whether they're effective, ineffective, and what you can take away from them. So in terms of like subject content, we can probably give you a bit of an overview. So a few key things that you learn throughout advertising and promotions. Kind of start off with looking at consumer behavior more generally. So a lot of it's kind of a recap, just focused on why consumers like certain promotions and which ones are more effective and how brands need to like communicate their benefit to consumers. A lot of this is like rooted in psychology, like classical conditioning and that stuff. So even if you're not a non-commerce student, but you're interested in psychology, I thought that was an interesting element.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then obviously you get to learn more about how to plan out campaigns. And then finally you get to learn about marketing tools and integrated marketing communications in more detail, like public relations, digital marketing, and like print media. So all of that. Yeah, it was very practical because you go through all these different tools and how to use them. Did I miss anything, Helen?
I don't think so. The lecturer, Danielle, she really took us through every single marketing tool, marketing channel, different marketing mixes that you could use, all for different types of consumers, which is really great. And how did you find the exam?
You're definitely prepared for it by the time it rolls around because you're given a case study ahead of time that's similar to your group assignment. And you sort of have to play around with the concepts you learned in class to design like another sort of campaign or analyzing a campaign depending on, I guess, who your lecturer is. So it's definitely like applying those tools in real life. I think we looked at Airbnb's campaign, which was really cool. So a lot of real world experience that you get out of it. And I think that was probably one of the more enjoyable aspects for me because you get to learn a bit more about business to consumer marketing rather than just like theories and the broad overviews that you get in other like subjects. I thought it was very targeted, and it was a lot of fun designing creative campaigns for brands, even if it was all theoretical. What was the most enjoyable part for you, Helen?
I guess seeing like why certain brands or certain ads fail to reach their consumer market. We watched a ton of ads in our tutes, which is good if you like doing that. And we really got to dissect like why Airbnb or Coles or whatever succeeded or like failed in their marketing activities, which is really pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I guess what kind of student do you think should be taking this subject, or what kind of student shouldn't be taking this subject in your opinion?
Along the same vein as most marketing subjects, it is quite a qualitative subject. So if you don't like long essays or reports, I'd probably steer clear. But if you're someone who wants to dig a little deeper into the marketing theory and analytics, and you're really wanting that real world experience, I think this would be a good launching pad off of. Would you agree?
No, I completely agree. I was going to say, like, I wouldn't expect like a super numerical class, like market business research or anything like that. Like, it's very creative, so definitely bring your creative energies to advertising and promotions if you choose to take it this year.
Mm-hmm. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode on the various marketing-related electives that are on offer this year. Thank you to all our guests that took the time out to give us their first-hand experience. Stay tuned for our final installment in the subject selection series, where we'll hear from professors and lecturers and their secrets to succeeding in their subjects.